Hi everyone, my name is Ira and I make sewing patterns. In this video I will show you how to make this kids swimsuit sizes from 0 months to 8 years old, and you can download the pattern through the description down below. Let's start! The best swimsuit fabric is a nylon and spandex blend with 4-way stretch. You will also need a swimsuit lining that is 100% nylon. It should look like this. Avoid using standard polyester elastic because it will not hold up to chlorine and salt, and make sure it's labeled specifically for swimwear. And as always, for stretchy fabric, use a ballpoint or stretch needle, and I also recommend that you use a walking foot. It prevents the fabric from being stretched as you sew it. Start by cutting out all the pattern pieces. Front top, 2 mirror pieces from main fabric and 2 mirror pieces from lining fabric. Same for back top. Be careful, they are similar looking, front and back. Back is a little bit wider at the bottom. You will need a waistband, cut 1 and fold from main and from lining. 4 ruffle pieces, 2 left and 2 right. Be careful to transfer the notch from the pattern piece to your fabric piece. And swimsuit bottoms, 1 front from main, 1 front from lining, and 1 back from main and 1 back from lining. Alright, step 1. Sew the front and back bottom pieces at the crotch, so place them right sides together, slightly stretch the front crotch to fit the back crotch, and sew with 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance using a stretch stitch or a narrow zigzag stitch. And repeat the same for 2 lining pieces. Now align the side seams and sew with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and repeat the same for the lining. Turn your main fabric right side out and keep the lining inside out, then place the lining inside the main fabric, align the crotch seams and the side seams, pin to keep them in place. And then match and pin along the waist and leg holes. Now you need to sew those 2 layers together along the waist and leg holes. You can use a serger or just a zigzag stitch along the edge. Cut a piece of elastic, and you'll find the elastic requirements chart in the tutorial. Overlap 2 ends of elastic by 1/2 inch and sew them together using a zigzag stitch or a stretch stitch. Now turn the bottoms wrong side out and pin the elastic to the wrong side, to the lining side of the leg, even with the edge of the leg holes, like this. You will need to stretch elastic to fit, stretch it evenly and pin in place. Using a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine, sew your elastic to the leg opening, stretching it to fit. Now turn your swim bottoms right side out and fold the elastic at the leg opening. Fold it in one elastic width, wrong sides together. Pin all the way around the leg opening. Now using a zigzag stitch on your machine, stitch around the leg opening to keep the elastic in place. And that's it for the bottom, you can set it aside for now. Take one front and one back top pieces from main fabric and sew the shoulder seams with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, then repeat for the lining pieces. Now place the lining and main fabric wrong sides together and match and pin all edges. Using a zigzag stitch or a serger, sew around all edges to keep both layers together. Now place two ruffle pieces right sides together. And there are two edges, one is slanted and one is straight. So sew one straight edge, this one, with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Take your ruffle and put it on top of your front and back swimsuit tops. Align the center seam on the ruffle with the shoulder seam on the bodice and match two notches with the edges of the neckline. Pin all the way around the neckline. Serge or zigzag sew ruffle to the top and back pieces between the notches, so ruffle will extend past the neckline on each side. Now cut a piece of elastic according to elastic requirements chart that you can find in tutorial and pin the elastic to the neckline, stretching it to fit. Using a zigzag stitch, sew the elastic to the neck opening. Now fold the elastic to the wrong side, to the lining side, and zigzag stitch along this fold, keeping the ruffle out of the way. And now you have these two ends of the ruffle that are extending past your bodice. You want to rotate them and align with the straight edge of your top front and top back, like this. Pin it in place and sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so right very close to the edge. And this is what it should look like at the front and back. I used a serger, but you can use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Now repeat all the previous steps for the other two front and back pieces. Place your tops right sides together, like this, and sew along the center front straight edges with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now you have this bulky seam right here at the front. Press it open and top stitch the seam allowance to each side. And now this is what it should look like. So both the front and back center seam should be open and top stitch. Now you can straighten the bottom of the ruffle and sew it to the bottom of the top. Now with right sides together, sew the side seams with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And press the seam open, again the same way you did for the center seam, and sew the seam allowance to each side. Now we're almost done. Now we need to attach elastic to the armhole openings, exactly the same we did for the leg hole openings at the bottom. So turn your top wrong side out and pin the elastic to the armhole, stretching it to fit. The elastic in place using a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Now fold it to the wrong side and zigzag sew along the fold. The top, this is what it should look like. Fold the waistband piece in half, right sides together, and sew the side seam. Do it for the main piece and for the lining as well. Now turn the main waistband right side out and the lining waistband inside out. Place the lining inside the main so that wrong sides are together, match the seam, and pin all the way around the edge. Using a zigzag stitch or a serger, sew around the top and bottom edges to keep both layers together. Take the waistband and swimsuit's bottom and insert one into another with right sides together. Align the side seam with the seam on the waistband and pin all the way around the waist. Sew around the waist with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now turn the swimsuit top right side out and insert it inside the bottom with right sides facing. Align the side seam and sew around the waist with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you're done. You can also top stitch the seam to the waistband at the top and bottom like this, and that's it. Thank you for watching.